Hi, everyone. Welcome to TED Talks. We have Antoinette with us today, and we're going to be talking about why ENFJs love INTPs. And so, yeah, would you like to tell us your perspective on why you adore the INTP population?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joyce. We've talked before about why I love INTPs, so I was super excited to get the chance to share how awesome they are. There's so many reasons, but in the interest of time, and also for any of the NTs that are out there that just want me to get to the point, I have notes so that I can be precise like INTPs are when they communicate. So what do I love about INTPs? I mean, the first thing I have to say is just the intellectual like prowess. They are beasts intellectually, I think. Um, the fact that they have dominant introverted thinking, it just makes them so analytical, but in a way that I really admire and find just fascinating. That they're so logical. So for me as an ENFJ, I find with my INTP friends, if I want them to give me advice, they're the best. Absolutely, because they can just get to the heart of the matter and give you the most logical advice. If you want someone to console you, you might want to go elsewhere for that. But if you want a solution, I don't think there's any better type to just get right down to the heart of the matter. And as long as you don't keep coming to them with the same problem, then I think they're usually really great at giving that advice as well too, and very generous at it. I guess the second thing I would say, and really it's an extension of the first, is the fact that INTPs have this just almost a compulsion to die for the truth. So I see them as truth seekers. And again, I think it's because they have dominant introverted thinking, and introverted thinking wants to get to the essence of something. It wants to um, analyze something and understand all of its parts. And so, as a person, if you happen to be one of those things that an INTP is interested in, then I almost find they go about friendships almost like you are a subject that they want to get to know about. And I find that understanding of truth is something that I really love about my relationships with the INTPs in my life, because they're radically honest, for better or worse. And sometimes as a ENFJ, that can be sometimes like a blast of honesty, but I really respect it. I really respect it because I think at the end of the day, it's it's what's true. And on that point about truth, one of the things that I found, particularly one of the INTPs in my life, is that he is so radically honest that even when it comes to his own beliefs and the things that he holds dear, if he gets a new piece of information for this framework that he's creating around all of the knowledge and all the beliefs that he holds, if it starts to chip away at the foundation, and he realizes that there's something that he has to reconfigure about his own truth. I've seen him do this, and I've seen other INTPs do this too, where I used to be a journalist, so we have an expression called kill your babies, and where you get so attached to your writing that you just don't want to release it in the edit. And INTPs in the edit, if it's what they're finding is not, if not, it's not congruent with what they believe to be true, I have seen them pivot. And I find that to be remarkable, just because it is so authentic, and so, um, again, I keep using the word admirable, but I think lots of people in general are very susceptible to really want to cling to and even use many different types of rationalizations to hold on to their beliefs. And I think INTPs truth is so important to them. So in their relationships as well, honesty is important in how they go about just connecting with other people. They don't really go along to get along. Again, having that inferior extroverted feeling also allows them to do that, I think, to be somewhat, but perhaps oblivious to social cues. But I think the fact that they are true to what they know is their truth also allows them to take on a sort of nonconformist sort of vibe to how they go about living life. But there's something so real about that. And so I really, really admire that about them. And, I think that's something that is a rare quality, actually. The other thing that I really like about INTPs, and that I've noticed with my INTP friends, they're really fiercely loyal. So if you should happen to be so lucky that you become one of their chosen, family, then I think that you have their loyalty, which is unwavering. And for the most part, unless you do something to prove to them that you no longer are someone that is going to, be worth their time. And I hate to say it that way in such a, such a maybe callous way, but I think it's coming from a place of, again, wanting to just look at relationships very logically. Very logically. It's like if they have a connection with you and you can connect with them, then they will probably spend more time with you. And if they feel that there's a lack of connection, whether it be they don't feel have any hobbies or activities that they can mutually share with you, or you're just literally not on the same wavelength, that is going to be, as an introvert for an INTP, draining, and they're going to spend less time with you. So for me, I think as an ENFJ, having dominant extroverted feeling, I'm also somewhat aware of when my INTP friends maybe just need to be, they need to be left alone, or maybe they're in their they're in their place where they're INTPing, whatever that is that they're obsessively doing. I know not to take it personally if they need to be left alone. I can kind of respect that, being able to understand, how an INTP works socially, right? So I think because of that understanding that I also have my INTP friends, I've earned a bit of maybe respect from them. And because of that, I can also see them and then go long periods of time when we don't connect. And then when we do see each other, it's like we don't skip a beat. It's radical. And I've said to many of them, and one in particular that comes to my mind, I traveled with him for many months in Europe, came back, didn't see him for a bit, and then reconnected with him, and it was like no time had passed. And literally I said to him, "You're like the best friend I never see." It's just an amazing mental connection. And although I'm skipping over the most obvious connective tissue, which is the fact that they have this intellectual curiosity, that they become obsessed with things and love to study a variety of things. I should go to that point next, because it speaks to one of the other things I love, love, love about INTPs. They're so creative. They're so creative, and they have this ability to really pull on both left and right brain thinking. So I just find so many of them have, the obvious cliche of the INTP, sort of the nerdy type in a screen. Yes, perhaps, but also all this other stuff in the world of arts and culture and whatever that INTP is obsessed with currently. The way they can deep dive into subject matter, it makes them amazing conversationalists. It makes them amazing, as I said, problem solvers and confidants. And also, as I also mentioned, the creativity is just out of control. And I think it's because they're able to draw from so many different disciplines. And I also think as an ENFJ, we tend to be people that our natural mode is busy and active. We do a lot of things. And I feel as if we can really relate to each other in that way, having lots of different interests. I see the INTP as sort of a Renaissance person. They're really good at a lot of different things. You know, they have the best of both worlds as far as I'm concerned when it comes to creativity. And, you know, if we're going to talk about cognitive functions, of course, the extroverted intuition is likely the culprit there. But also, I think that the INTP's extroverted intuition, it also allows them to have this really wicked sense of humor. And I find some of the funniest people that I engage with on a regular basis through my theater groups. And, you know, anytime I'm in a situation where I'm playing games with someone and they're an INTP, there's a wittiness, a wordplay, a quickness, and also I find the sense of humor in general to be a little bit edgy. And again, maybe it's because of the, you know, inferior extroverted feeling. I'm not sure, but there's less of a filter perhaps with the INTPs, at least in my life, for what is proper. And so as a result, I find when they have a sense of humor, it tends to be edgy, it tends to be a little dark. And I'm not sure if other ENFJs will find this. For me, as somebody who's a huge fan of comedy, I really love comedy that hits a little bit of an edge. There's a subversion to that. And maybe because I'm, again, as an ENFJ, I'm so aware of relationships and the social contracts, spoken and unwritten, that when somebody does something with humor that's subversive, I find it hilarious. So there's something about INTPs that I think with every single one of my INTP friends, they've always connected with me on humor. I've always found them to be hilarious and deceptively so. Right, the still waters run very deep with INTPs, and because they have such a wide well of knowledge, because they are introverts and are observers, they're taking in this truth about everything that's going on around them, making these connections in this really kind of brilliant web that they weave. And then when the time comes, actually hit you with a well-timed and, again, truthful kind of quip, there's absolute snipers, absolute snipers that way. And I really appreciate that as well. I do want to go back to one other thing that I forgot to mention, I think is also something about INTPs. Because of that inferior extroverted feeling, I think ENFJs and INTPs get along really well as well, because we can help each other compensate for some of the areas that we might be a little bit weaker in. And so for me, having inferior TI, and I've also noticed this, especially with, you know, less healthy ENFJs or younger ENFJs, we may struggle with self-doubt around, you know, how we perceive the world when it comes to how the feedback we're getting from it, the external world. If it doesn't validate maybe what we're thinking or feeling, we may become riddled with self-doubt. And what's interesting to me is when I look at INTPs, and I've had conversations with my friends, especially the male INTPs, who may have relationship struggles. They literally don't know, they don't know what they've done to cause offense to somebody, or they're in a situation with me and I'm watching the car crash as it's about to happen, and they just don't see it. They don't see the offense. So it's sometimes nice when you have somebody who can then come in and literally be an emotional wing person for you. And I've done that many times with INTPs. I've literally also, ENFJs tend to at times be very good at matchmaking. Definitely the case for me. I've set up many of my INTP friends just by simply engaging somebody in a conversation and then bringing the INTP into the conversation and then allowing them to do their thing once they feel safe. And I've noticed that. So a lot of my INTP friends like to, the men like to hang out with me because they meet a lot of people with me as their wing person. And then emotionally, I also feel like they can be really great wings for us too, because when we do get into self-doubt, they can also come in and hit you with, some logic and also bring you down to earth. They're amazing listeners. And obviously, I can talk. And so it's a perfect pairing that way. They're very generous, and I mean that in every sense of the word, and also very generous emotionally when you're in that inner circle. Once you're in that circle, you're absolutely in, and it's one of the most beautiful relationships I think I've ever experienced has been with an INTP. And I also think in terms of my platonic relationships, they're just wonderful people to have around, for all the reasons I mentioned, and then all the reasons I haven't. The obvious perceiver function allows them to be really flexible and spontaneous, which is great fun, for judgers like myself as well. I find that I can also be more playful. The more playful side of me can actually play with INTPs. And I feel like our inner children just want to play together. There's something really, really wonderful about that. And probably lastly, but certainly not least, they're absolute visionaries. Whether it's in, the arts or science, I mean, we can drop all sorts of names in the chat of suspected INTPs, but I think they're on this level where they're sort of, I want to say like the mad scientists of the world, but they're down the street when we're here. Everyone's here and they're over here creating new knowledge and coming up with things that we're not even ready yet to even understand. And so I think there's something about INTPs for myself. I always learn from them. And so literally and figuratively as a teacher, I just find them to be, man, just really, really great. And they've been blessed with, I think, the best of both worlds, really, in terms of how their cognitive functions really stack up. I think in terms of the lottery of cognitive functions, if I were not ENFJ, and I think ENFJs are pretty amazing as well, I think I'd want to be an INTP. I really dig how they think. And yeah, they're some of the most endearing relationships, and I also feel the most earned relationships. Not always easy to talk about feelings or be in feelings with them, but I've seen a lot of my friends who are INTPs really try, and when you get to know them, they're actually some of the most warm, like caring, kind people. It's yeah, it's always a pleasure to really peel back the onion that is an INTP, and yeah, I'm always up for that challenge because it's so worth it. And people, of course, of any type are so complex. But yeah, the INTP, I think, it does have a lot of really wonderful qualities and a deep intellectual chasm that I love exploring. So I can talk to them for hours and hours and hours. And, I'm always leaving kind of wanting more. Like, I need to hang out with that person more. But of course I won't, because they're introverts, so they need their time alone too. So it's, yeah, it's a wonderful thing if you have INTPs in your life. They're some of the most, intellectually curious and truth-seeking, loyal, caring, and frankly, I think some of the funniest people you can ever encounter. So yeah, I'm happy to have them in my life when they do show up.
Yes, INTPs are splendid creatures indeed. And so their mind is beautiful, just the amount of thought they put into being truth seekers. They are on the quest for truth, and they will kill the baby in order to get there. And so they're unafraid to do that, while everyone would be very touchy around challenging their core beliefs. An INTP will do it if they think that they have ample reason to. And so, yeah, it's nice that you have such an encounter with such an intellectually honest type. And it does seem like quite a great pairing with you being able to help them with their extroverted feeling too, so that they're able to know and calibrate when to say their truths to the world. And so thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you all in the next episode. And if you're an INTP, just know Antoinette loves you.